Hey folks, it's Rob from Rob's Movie Collection, and this week we're doing for the Genre Files Westerns, and I picked Appaloosa. Appaloosa is from 2008. It stars Ed Harris as Virgil Cole, sometimes lawman, gunslinger. Viggo Mortensen from Lord of the Rings fame as Everett Hitch, his companion, friend, fellow traveler, whatnot. Renee Zellweger as Allie, the woman who causes trouble. And Jeremy Irons as Randall Bragg, who's the bad guy in the movie. Appaloosa is based on a book by Robert B. Parker. He wrote, I think he wrote the Spencer novels as well. But he wrote several of these Virgil Cole, Everett Hitch novels before he passed away. And then they were continued, or have been continued, by another author named Robert Knott. The movie itself was written by Robert Knott and Ed Harris. It's also directed by Ed Harris. And this is Harris's second directing effort after he did Pollock. He did Pollock, the story of Jackson Pollock. And he was in that. He played Pollock and also directed that one. Harrison and Mortensen had worked together previously in a movie called A History of Violence, which is also a pretty good movie. You should check that one out. And I guess Ed Harris really liked working with him, and so when he came to make this movie, he thought of him and he remembered him and decided to cast him, and they did just a great job. They got along very well together. This is, this came out in 2008 at a time when not a lot of Westerns were being made, still not a lot of Westerns made. It's funny how there was a time in movie history where just Westerns were all the rage, and they were so prevalent, and you can just kind of go back and see during that period of history there's so many of them. But then they just kind of died off after a while, and certainly in 2008 nobody was making Westerns, and it's a shame because this movie didn't do well in the movie theater, but the characters are such good characters, both in the novel and in this movie, and I would have loved to have seen more of this because, gosh, this could have easily been a trilogy and maybe more, just based on the books alone. One of the great things, or at least maybe even the best thing about the movie, really the best thing about the movie, is the friendship between these two characters. It's strange. They've known each other for a long time, both in the book and in the movie. But they don't talk a lot, but yet they just know each other so well. They have to cover each other's backs all the time, and especially when they become lawmen. And there's a scene that kind of describes this pretty well. They've been together for a while, and Virgil, Ed Harris, meets Allie, Renee Zellweger's character, and they get involved. And she's just kind of a mess, and at one point she puts some moves on Everett. And later, to kind of get back at him for rejecting her, she tells Virgil, he put his hands on me, he hit on me. And Everett just says very calmly, no, he didn't, Virgil. And Virgil says, no, he didn't, Allie. And because he just, no doubt about it, he believes them. They've known each other for a long time. They know their character, and there's no doubt there. So I thought that was pretty good. I thought that was pretty neat. As I said earlier, this is based on a book by Robert B. Parker. I would actually recommend the books. It's strange how they're written. The chapters are like a page or two long sometimes, and it's a lot of dialogue, but I should say not a lot of dialogue. It's not a lot of description, but the dialogue is very, very curt, because that's how the characters are, and it's very easy to get to, but it's addicting at times. It's just so easy to read through. I read some of these just in the bookstore, So I do actually recommend them. And Robert Knott has continued in the style of Robert B. Parker after his passing. So he's continued that style of writing, and the characters go on. And that's reading those books. And in a way, it's kind of like every time I read one of those, I think, oh man, it's a shame that they didn't make more of these movies. It's a shame that this movie didn't do better in the theater. It's one of those movies that it's a really good movie, and yet it just didn't catch on, and it didn't make nearly enough money, or practically any money at all, to be able to be given a sequel. So, and that's a shame. There's a lot of movies like that in movie history, and I tend to own a lot of them. But this definitely is one of those. I would have loved to have seen a sequel. At this point, I would settle for just seeing Ed Harris and Viggo Mortensen work together again in a film, because they were so good together, both in this and in A History of Violence. In A History of Violence, they were antagonists towards each other, but in this one, they were there's just this partnership that's really great to watch. It actually reminds me a lot of that other movie, Open Range, with Kevin Costner, in that they take the time to build the characters, and they're not in a rush to be just action. Maybe that's one of the reasons that it didn't do as well. The younger crowd today doesn't have the patience for plot development or character development, or geez, just a moment when characters are sitting around and talking to each other. Heaven forbid that they should stop. And that's one of the things that they do here, and the characters relate to each other a lot, and I find that interesting to watch. And then, of course, when the action does come, because it is a Western and, gunfighters and all that stuff, it's great. So I just thought it was fantastic. I can't say enough good things about this movie. It was one of those situations where, you go sometimes to a movie not really expecting much and not really expecting to see this fantastic movie, or you're just like, oh, there's nothing to see, or hey, look, there's something different. I remember my friend went with my friend to see this, and it was just like the only Western around, and there was nothing else to see. I'm like, well, let's give that a try. You kind of like Ed Harris, and I was a big fan of the Lord of the Rings movie, so yeah, let's give it a shot. And then you come out thinking, wow, that was so good. That was so much better than we thought it was going to be, and oh, this is great. And you're already hoping that they're going to make another one. So as you can see, I highly recommend it. So anyway, Appaloosa is my choice for Westerns for the genre files, and I do recommend it as a movie and as a Western, and check it out if you haven't seen it. I think you'll enjoy it. It's definitely worth seeing. Alright, so I will see you guys next time in the next genre files. Alright, bye.